Hey, I'm John Greaves III, the founder of Garage Gym Life, and I've got my guest with me today, Jake Jaworski. Jake is not only the guy you know from Garage Gym Experiment and Garage Gym Radio, but he's also the mind behind HomeGymCon, which is one of the best times I have had this year so far. So, Jake, thank you for joining me, man.
I'm happy to be back. Thanks for having me.
I mentioned HomeGymCon, and I want to start with that. I know how I felt about it. I just said it's one of the best times. I've got a video here reacting with about 6 other home gym owners who attended, and we're all just gushing over and over about how much we loved it. But I'd like to hear from you, like your perspective, now that you've had time for the weekend to kind of digest a little bit and settle, and the stress of having to run that whole thing. So what are your reactions to the first ever in history home gym convention?
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaways that I have seen is just that everybody had a good time. Just about everybody had a good time. So sure, there were some gripes. There were certainly some things that could have been better, but everybody who bought tickets to the vendors, everybody just, everybody came together, and I think everybody had a really good time connecting with others. That was the kind of the primary thing. And then also you had the ability to just have a really good time with the equipment. I think the setting was a good setting. Yeah, sure. Took a little while for some people to get there, but it's a great place for that first interaction between the community. So yeah, I think there's a lot of little things in my head that are like, oh, you could have done better. And I really didn't know what was going to happen going into the weekend. But I think the big thing is just the joy that people had going there. Like you mentioned, it was one of the best weekends you've had so far this year. I've heard other people say it's the best weekend they've had outside of things they do with their family in many years. So just the ability, just knowing that you created something that people enjoyed is a really good feeling.
I think the thing that I really enjoyed a lot about it was a lot of home gym owners tend to be introverted, which is part of why we work out at home. We're not comfortable with crowds. We don't like strangers. And I thought it was a tremendous accomplishment that you convinced over 100 introverts to travel to somewhere that I'm going to say nobody had ever been before, to just get together for multiple days. It's not even that we did it for one day. You had people there. People were there multiple days. I had to leave Saturday. I didn't get to stay for Sunday. And the whole way we're leaving, my wife and I are talking about how much we wish we could stay. Yeah, man, yeah. I wanted to do this other thing and all that, and my daughter, I have a 7-year-old daughter. She had a great time. You think, okay, why a kid is not, what am I going to do with my kids? Well, the swing sesh booth was a hit with adults and with kids, So just the fact that some of that organic stuff happened because you set up an environment where we could be comfortable, I think is a win.
Right. And I think even introverts, most people need something. And I think this was a really good excuse for a lot of them to have a getaway like this.
I made a lot of connections with people that I had, some people who I didn't even anticipate being there. So just a quick one, there's a guy, when I first made my connection with Spud Inc., to try to, kind of work out some business stuff with them. The guy who ended up doing the first interview I did with Spud Inc. was there. And he was just there as he's not an employee of Spud Inc. or anything like that. He just happened to be there. In fact, he was there with somebody else. And he saw me from behind. He said, John. And I, that's me. So I turned around and I said, Kenny, right? And and my wife is like, who is this guy you're hugging? You know what I mean? And it was that, but it was that vibe the entire weekend. You see people like, oh, hey, I loved the different things that you had scheduled, like the deadlift party, the log lift off. These weren't necessarily competitions, but there were still more opportunities to invite people to not just kind of sit passively and watch, which I think is a problem with some expos. You go to a lot of expos and they're geared towards kind of being passively fed in a way. So you go to the Arnold, and I've been to Arnold a lot, and it's, okay, I'm there to see what the vendors are bringing, what supplements are they releasing, what clothes are there. I want to meet this athlete and I'm going to stand in line for an hour and shake his hand, take a picture and move on. I want to see so-and-so competition, but I'm there passively, right? There's very little interactive stuff that you can do. Whereas I felt that at HomeGymCon, it was about us. It was like me driven. I could participate as much or as little as I wanted to in a very non-threatening way. And I think that that was one of the reasons that made it a success, because we felt free to be able to just kind of like, oh, okay, I'm around people who get me. Nobody's going to judge me for what I think or anything like that. And I just think that that was it was a really, I didn't get a chance to tell you that, but I think that was like a win for me. And another reason why I'm so excited about 2024. So in fact, I've already got my ticket. So
yeah, you do.
Yeah, so let's segue into 2024. I watched the kind of wrap up that you guys did with Kyle and Rob and Adam and who else was there? Kurt. And I watched that, and I heard you say that you and Adam, like, ideas started percolating like as soon as like the next day you already had ideas in your head for what to do next. And so my ears perked up, right? I said, oh, ideas like what? Share. So share with the group, Jake. What do you have in mind for 2024?
First of all, I just want to be clear, like, I've been very open that this is just kind of a building it as we go project. So I'm always open to ideas and learning quite a bit as I'm going. To start, we're definitely going to bring back some of those more interactive things, like you mentioned, like the deadlift party. That was, I think for a lot of people, that was the highlight. Oh, yeah. And there were just so many people that actually got involved. We definitely want to bring that back. Surplus Strength, they did a great job with it at their booth. They're going to do that again. So we want to do that. Maybe a log lift off again. So like things like that are in the forefront of our minds, but we're also going to get some official stuff going. So I would say we are 95% sure on just about all of these, but there will be a powerlifting meet. There will be an official strongman meet. There will be an official weightlifting meet. Okay. There will be an official arm lifting meet. Okay.
Well, let's pause right there. So let's pause right there. So
I think that's it. I think that's it. But yeah,
you said powerlifting, arm lifting, weightlifting, strongman, and arm lifting, for those who don't know, is a grip competition. So the thing that I'm curious about is this going to be a powerlifting meet that's sanctioned through a federation, or is this going to be something more like Joe Gray's Garage Gym competition, where it's essentially sanctioned, it's its own sanction, right? So, or even Static Monsters, where it's like you can set records and all that sort of thing, but it's basically an in-house thing, and you come here every year and you compete here. Or is it going to be more like something that it's a WRPF or whatever federation?
No, it'll be an APF.
An APF, okay.
So it's definitely official. We want to bring, like, if some of the best want to come out and compete, we want to have them. We want to be able to have the home gym community see them. So yeah, it's going to be official. We have a company who's kind of running it, and we are in the early stages of that, but it's pretty much official that that's going to happen. Weightlifting, we're looking to partner with Will Fleming to bring a weightlifting comp. Kurt's going to run a strongman competition. So we're still trying to figure out specific dates. The arm lifting one will probably happen on Friday, and then Saturday will be loaded with those sorts of things, those sorts of other things. And then, yeah, you mentioned the Garage Gym Games. So we're going to get these official meets going, and then start working on the Garage Gym Games here within the next month or so, hopefully. So, I won't get into too many details because a lot of it still needs to be worked out.
Sure.
But we're looking like it's going to be a legit thing. We're looking to kind of all of the sports we mentioned earlier, plus make maybe some CrossFit and this and that, general fitness, and bring it together for the Garage Gym Games. There will be a number of different challenges. And then we're also going to make sure there's going to be some sort of online qualifier
for the Garage Gym Games.
For the Garage Gym Games to get you there. It'll be either a combination of like just video submissions, or we're going to actually make it legit. So, but year one, we're just going to do it. We're going to figure out what works. what doesn't, and then we'll crown the champions of the garage gym games at HomeGymCon next year.
That sounds good. So with arm lifting, I know that a fair amount of the athletes train at home just because
Mhm.
of the implements that you need. You're not typically going to find those at a public gym, maybe like the Rolling Thunder or something like that. But a lot of times you don't, you don't find that stuff in a public gym. Obviously, there are a fair amount of strongman competitors and powerlifters who like train at home too. But how do you see like this mix gonna go? Is this more like this is Home Gym Con, it's for home gym owners, and we get to watch some of these top athletes compete? So it's like entertainment for us? Or is it more like, hey, you know what? You're a home gym owner and you have kind of been on the fence about competing. So this is gonna be a less threatening, I don't say non-threatening because it's still competing, it's still on the platform in front of people. This is a less threatening way to dip your toe into competing and kind of see if it's for you.
Yeah, I would say both. So
Okay.
like there, like part of it is also just trying to get more people out there. If you want an excuse to come to a better excuse to come to Home Gym Con and you want to compete, that would be great. Bring your family. We got a year out. You can kind of put that on the calendar, say I'm doing this at Home Gym Con. So it's partly that, and then I think one of the really cool things was the accessibility to like some of the like more mainstream people, like Matt Wenning was there, Midwest Kong, and Matt Vincent. Like people like that. Like it was really cool to have them there, and then you have accessibility to them, and like they were all really generous with their time.
Right.
They also seemed to have a really good time. So it's partly just that, and then just trying to create something cool, John.
The people. Oh yeah, hey, I understand. Only reason I said that is because like one of the things that I've disliked about the different expos I've been to a fair amount, in the last. Okay, so I've been lifting weights since 1993. So I've been going to expos for a while. And one of the things I've always felt that I didn't like was that it never really felt like it was for me, right? And I've competed in powerlifting, I've competed in a few different things, but it was always like, okay, well, you're like the one guy that competes at home, that trains at home. You need to go join the gym or whatever.
Right.
And so I was just curious about that because I'm seeing like it's going to be a balancing act for you. Not that you can't do it. It's going to be a balancing act for you to still maintain the flavor of this being something for home gym owners,
Yeah.
while at the same time, you can't have a sanctioned powerlifting meet and say, okay, must train at home in order to compete. That's going to violate, the federation's
Oh yeah,
basic
no,
rules.
no.
Yeah, yeah. So you can't
Yeah.
have that at all. So, all right.
I'm not worried about something like that. I still think like this event is created for the home gym community. We just
Okay.
want to create the best event possible for the home gym community. And I also think one way to combat that is by most conventions, the vendor list is like supplement company, this
Mhm.
brand of t-shirts, this brand of t-shirts, this brand of t-shirts, this supplement company. We had some cool stuff outside of the vendors, but the vendors were awesome
Oh,
last
they're the
year.
highlight.
And I
Yeah.
think if you still keep it 90% gym equipment suppliers, and you also focus on the right type of vendor, that will definitely keep the vibe that we want. That's another reason we wanted to bring it back to French Lick. It does take an extra step, but it
Right.
also ensures the quality of the attendees. Like they're taking a little bit of an extra step to
Right.
come. It's in a place where basically everybody gets together and they stay together.
Right. And not
And
just
you
all
have the
drifting off to go do other things. Yeah.
right. So that's part of the reason why we wanted to keep it in French Lick as
Yeah.
well, just because of the overall experience once you're there. I was in the Arnold, and I would say like a third of the people seemed like they were just from Columbus. Like they had Columbus
Yeah.
t-shirts, they had Rogue t-shirts, or they were like just like it's a different vibe. Like it's definitely a different vibe. I understand people's concerns for traveling, but that's also part of it to keep it more of a
Yeah.
homey feel.
Let's go ahead and just dive into the location thing. So I ran a poll on my channel. And to be honest with you, part of the reason why I ran the poll was because, people asked me like, well, how was it? And I got comments on the reaction video we did say, oh, well, I would have gone except for the location. And I kept hearing people say, oh, yeah, if it were somewhere else. And one of the things I can't stand, this is just a personality quirk of mine, right? My thing is don't bring problems if you don't bring a solution with it. And so I'm like, all right, if you don't like the location, where would you put it? 20% of the people who responded said keep it in French Lick. However, out of that 20%, most, if not all of them, had actually attended.
Yeah, right.
Right. And then we got 54% saying new location every year, which I was like, okay, well, that's reasonable, I guess. But then you're going to have like some costs associated with it always being the first time in a place. Right. But at the same time, most of the people who said a new place every year didn't attend. So they're still in that same group of people who really don't know what the experience was actually like
Yeah.
and how much there actually is to do once you get to that resort. So I'm going to go ahead and just say this is like the thing for me that I found great was that the French Lick Resort has just about anything you would want to do there if you're not into home gym stuff, right? But at the same time, it's not going to distract from home gym stuff if you do want to do it, right? So, for example, my wife and I on the way home, she's like, well, maybe next year we'll come a day early and then we'll go play mini golf or we'll go horseback riding because all of that is available at the hotel. My daughter and I went down to the arcade. I found this, I didn't even realize the arcade there. Go downstairs to this arcade and we're playing video games. She and I had never played video games before. We enjoyed the bowling alley. We enjoyed the pizzeria. So it's like, when I say it's a resort, it's almost like a mini city. There were people who were telling me that they were at HomeGymCon and their wife or something was just enjoying the spa. What would be the challenge if you're trying to duplicate that if you went to somewhere like Chicago or even Arizona in terms of cost?
It would be quite a bit of a larger upfront cost that I can't do. So that's number one. I don't know exactly where it's going to be year 3, year 4, year 5, year 6, based on the polls and based off of like everybody who said where it should be. And then you ask a follow-up question, you're like, where do you think it should be? And they tell you somewhere within like an hour driving distance of where they are.
Exactly.
That is
so basically make it closer to me.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
so I do think like, I mean, French Lick is, it's definitely out in the middle of nowhere, but it's driving distance for a lot of people in the Midwest. And I do feel like if you have it on the calendar earlier enough, it is, it's an hour drive from the airport from Louisville. So if you can get to Louisville, it's an hour drive. If you go to Columbus and you fly to Columbus, it's a half an hour drive to the Arnold anyways, a lot of like, or if you go to Denver, you're going to fly into Denver and you're going to drive an hour somewhere anyways, or you're going to take an Uber. I certainly understand, but if that's your biggest complaint, you just don't want to come enough, and that's fine. And I totally understand. There's a lot of people that are like, I'd go if it was within driving distance.
Right.
That's probably most people. We also don't want, like I said earlier, we don't want this to turn into just like every 16-year-old in the city comes to it. We really want it to be that community feel. We might consider like a second event each year that caters more to that need, where if somebody just wants to come in, walk around and touch the equipment and leave. But that also needs to be built up over time. There's also just the fact that what made the event great was a lot of the companies were smaller companies who geared up big time for this, brought their A game. They spent weeks and they spent thousands of dollars to get there, and they can't do that multiple times a year. They're not going to do that 3-4 times a year. So that, and then also I just want to mention another thing, a big key to being a vendor at something like this is the accessibility to like people like you who could just walk in, do YouTube videos, and have content for a ton to see like over the upcoming months. So and you talk to somebody at the Arnold who does that, and they had to scramble. It'd be really hard for them to get everybody the proper coverage. And I do think we had a couple hundred people last year. I think we can get to, I do think we can get to 1,000 people next year.
I can see that
for sure. And I don't think it would be too crowded. So I think you could still have, especially if we have more stuff in other areas.
So you actually threw a lot of like diamonds out there for me to pick up, right? So let's okay, so some of the people watching this may not remember this, but the benefit of I have of being old is that I remember when the Arnold started and there was nothing in Columbus, Ohio. Rogue Fitness may have existed when the Arnold started. I'm not sure about that. All right. West Side Barbell was there, but nobody, you couldn't even get into West Side Barbell. It wasn't the sort of place that you could like it became later where you could just go and visit and just drop in or whatever. You couldn't, like, they wouldn't even tell you where it was if you met somebody who had trained there. So it's like Columbus is in the middle eastern part of the country, right? And French Lick is in the middle of the country. So it's kind of like equidistant from most people. And I think that the fact that it is where it is, it's essentially far for everybody. You know, everybody has to do something to get there, which means when you get there, you're more serious. You're less likely to just be window shopping. You've got people, which is important for the vendors, because I've spoke to a couple of vendors and they were like, you know, I don't want to go somewhere, spend the money that it costs to get there, lose the time in production because these are small shops. I'm going to lose the production time associated with traveling there and being there, and then not make any sales. But I have heard from multiple vendors that yes, they did make sales. I've heard, I know from Black Widow, Dean from Black Widow was talking about how he made an important business connection with the guy from Gym Equipped, that he didn't even realize how close they were to each other. Now they're going to start doing some work together. Oh, actually, I heard that on you guys's
yeah, there's quite a
video.
bit.
Yeah. So it actually benefited the vendors. It benefited the people who went there, because like the rep had the Aries there, just for example, right? And the cost for an Aries, I mean, you look at maybe $6,000. Now, can you imagine ordering an Aries, you get it all the way to your house, and then you find out you're not quite satisfied with it because of this or that thing with the configuration, right? And of course, they're going to help you through the process, trying to figure out what you want and everything else like that. But it's not like touching it yourself. So for what I spent to get there, which is a fraction of what I would have spent if I had gone to the Arnold, right? And I mean, just, okay, so full disclosure, I don't pay to get in the Arnold because I usually am on a media pass, but I still got to pay for my hotel. So if I'm in a hotel at the Arnold, like at the Arnold location, you're spending, I mean, you can spend about $1,000 just for the hotel.
Yeah.
So that means you got to have a hotel further away. So now you got to have a car. The hotel at French Lick was like a $200 in tax, maybe. Yeah. So let's say we spent about $500 for HomeGymCon plus hotel. And in the process, I saved thousands of dollars on home gym equipment. To me, it's completely worth it. It's completely worth it. And you're not going to get that if you put it in a place that has a higher cost associated with just being in that place. I know Vegas tries to keep it a little bit cheaper, but then you're going to have everybody, you know, vanishing to the four winds every 5 minutes, which is the problem the Olympia had. Nobody wants to hang out with the vendors because I can go to the casino, I can go gamble, I can go here. There's a lot of, and I've been to the Olympia, there's a lot of different distractions. And I just don't think that would be fair to the vendors, you know, who then are they're gonna have to drive, because everybody's talking about, oh, well, we could just fly there. I'm like, yeah, but what about this small business that can't, you know, pack, you know, even rep, they're not gonna pack up the rep Aries and all that onto the plane and fly it there. So it's gonna cost them more to get there. And I think that's going to raise the cost for you, you know what I mean? And reduce the number of quality vendors you're going to have at the place.
Yeah. Yeah. You're preaching to the choir.
Yeah. He's like, you've convinced me. Yeah. All right. Oh, and the other thing I would say is, still talking about location, is out of the people who were talking about not, you know, wishing you were somewhere else, I would love to know how many of them have actually gone to an expo at all. Because like I said in the beginning, home gym owners, a lot of us are introverts. And so you might say, oh, well, if we were here, I would go, but there's no guarantee of that because, you know, sure, you show up at this other thing. If you show up at the Arnold and it's like wall to wall people, then it becomes annoying. And that's one of the other things that I didn't like about the Arnold, is just like people everywhere. And you can tell that some of the people in the crowd aren't even into fitness. It's just there for the spectacle.
Right.
So, all right. So if somebody wanted to just, they're like, okay, well, I want to find out more. Or if they're like, hey, I went last year, or I wanted to go last year and I did get my ticket, go ahead and tell people where they can find more information and let them know, and then also talk about ticket pricing. And I know you have stuff like in tiers, depending on when you get it. So talk about that a little bit.
Right now, the HomeGymCon.com website is still for last year, but we do have a link to buy tickets at an early discount. So next year it will be in French Lick again, as we discussed. It'll be a few weeks later in the year on a full day Friday and full day Saturday, the 26th and 27th of April.
Are you guys going to do early access on Thursday?
There will be an hour early access for the premium ticket purchase holders, but that's it.
I'm just asking because we had that dinner for the early access people.
Right now we have 4 different ticket options. So you can buy Friday only, you can buy Saturday only, you can buy Friday and Saturday. And then you can also, we're going to bring the premium ticket back with multiple dinners as well. So we will have a dinner on Friday night and then also on Saturday night. These are where the premium ticket holders and the vendors get together and we have a meal, there's drinks. One night will be at the Pete Dye course, which is a really nice golf course in the area. And the next night, we're actually going to have it like right next to the Pete Dye course at the stables. So where there's horses, and it's also it's an upgrade to what we had last year as well.
Oh, nice. Okay.
For that one. So instead of like that night one, in the if you came last year, we had just in a conference
ballroom.
Yeah. So next year, both of them will be at cool places.
So you mentioned golf course. French Lick apparently has, was it like one of the longest greens in the world?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, yeah. So it's a really, so when he's like, yeah, the golf course or whatever, like he's kind of underselling it. Like if you're into golf, this is going to be one of the nicest places you ever play. It's really nice. And if you mentioned the stables, you can go horseback riding and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll just mention like those dinners. If you want the full experience, basically everybody that bought them last year, or a good amount who have already repurchased, decided to re-up for the full premium ticket. So the dinners aren't cheap, so that's baked into the cost. Right. But it's really fun and cool experience to just get with vendors, and like I said, there's drinks and good times there. But yeah, we're dropping the ticket prices a little bit this year. Like for example, right now you can get a Friday and Saturday ticket for $49.99. And then if you want the premium ticket, it's $209.99. Right. And then we're going to bump those prices up slightly in June. We'll bump them up slightly again in December. And then we'll bump them up again in February. Not much, but like probably from now until then, an additional $10, $15 per ticket.
Is the hotel going to give the discount rate again?
Yes. So if you stay Thursday, it'll be $149 a night. And then if you stay Friday or Saturday, it's bumped up a little bit to $219 each night.
I'm going to have you back on when you get more information so we can continue to build this up. I'm going to put the links of everything you give me in the description for the video. And, if somebody just wants to go to one central place, I know you got a newsletter, but one central place to sign up and just find out more information, where can they go? I
would say the easiest way to stay in the loop about next year is just to go to at HomeGymCon on Instagram. So that's kind of the easiest place to follow along. And yeah, I think I just want to say thank you for having me, and just hearing how excited you are for next year, and the amount of fun you had. Just a good time is just like, as someone who put together, it's just really, really cool to hear, and I appreciate it.
I can't wait to go back and scare Kurt again.